Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to be breaking down how I did the sound design for the different parts of this SWAT video using only the Sound Design Bundle 2. If you haven't seen the original SWAT video, you can check out the link in the description. Now, the first part I'm going to show you is Igniter. And if you don't know what Igniter is, it is our all-in-one solution for vehicle sound design. Let's play the video and have a look how Igniter could be used to do the sound for it. So there's the van driving in, there is what would appear to be some kind of a tyre skid as it comes to a halt, and then the back door opening. The first thing I thought was, let's get what the size of the van actually is. Now we have a selection of different presets, and I picked the Land Rover Defender just to its bulky engine size, and it does sound very heavy. I thought it best represented the van. So once I'd chosen that preset, it loaded up with your granular RPM, which is this parameter here, already loaded into the macro. The two components of engine and exhaust, and then a mix between the two of them. Now, what you can do is, I went into the automation and I went and selected it to come from high revs, which is with the master RPM control here, and then I wanted it to come down to low revs. So just with that already, this is how it sounds. Now you'll hear that the engine drove down and past the point of when it stopped. And the reason for that is because of the one-shots. Now, I wanted to use the one-shots to trigger the door opening afterwards, which means that's got to happen after the van has already come to a halt. So how I get around this is, inside the macro controls, I can just add a point to the granular RPM, drag it down, and now the van will come to a halt before the end of the one-shot parameter. And now that's way more in time with the actual on-screen visuals. On top of that, I wanted to make it seem like the van was moving and more in the real-world space. I did this with the mix control. Now, down here I added another layer of automation, and I just chose the mix parameter. All of our parameters are automatable inside your DAW. And then I drew in the granular coming from the engine side and drawing it up to the exhaust side. So let's have a listen to how that sounds without any of the automation on. Now to me that just sounds a bit too static. It's like you're just focusing on one point of the van, and now with the automation on, that more accurately represents what's happening on screen and just gives a little bit of movement and life to the scene. So we'll head over to the one-shots now. So the first thing I wanted to do with the one-shots was have the door open. Because I wanted to know when the end point for the van would be exactly, and I could tweak the RPM up here accordingly as well. So my first thing to do was find what sound I liked the most. So if we just type in door, we have a huge selection of different effects that come with Igniter. And I chose the door open number 2. Now, you can preview them all in this window here. So when I got to 3, I was like, no, that's not quite right. I really like the sound of number 2. It's got a slight bit of like hydraulic-y kind of like movement on it. Once I've found the right sound, I just drag and drop it into the bank here, and then I can figure out where to trigger it on the timeline. Now, this is hooked up directly to the revs parameter and goes from 0 to 100. So then, because I've already drawn in the automation for the car driving down to a stop, I just need to figure out where to place the trigger marker. Now, you can do that by double-clicking on the track. The first one is triggers it as it's going up the way, triggers as it's coming down, triggers both ways, and then stop if you've got a longer file in there. So I'll get rid of that. And this was where my trigger point was. So I'll move it around and I'll show you the difference with the triggers. So that's far too late, obviously. That's far too early, and then you can just easily tweak it to where it comes in. So I felt that that was a much better accurate representation of how it was, and I played with that along with the engine granular side. So the last thing to do in here was the tyre skids. Now, we have a huge selection of tyre skids, and again, it was the exact same as doing it with the door opening. So typed into here, skid, and previewed a few. So I felt like number 3 there was the closest to coming to a halt, but it's very high pitched and very squeaky. I wanted something a little bit more real sounding. So we have these really nice recordings of the Tesla Model S skids. So what I liked about number 5 is it had a little bit of that squeak, just like tyre skid number 3 does, but it also has that kind of roady like movement element to it as well. So I dragged them in and combined the two together. So after that, I just put the triggers on the track lay option up here and made sure that they were syncing at the same time. Now, if we go back to the very start of the clip, you will hear how this the triggers came in. So obviously they start a bit later than the original start of the sound for the granular. I quite liked that because it gave a little bit of time of the van coming in. But the more important bit for me was having that skid stop as the van stopped as well, and where the engine went back to idle. So I just could adjust these bit by bit until I was happy with the sound. So I felt that was a little bit too late. A little bit too early, and then there was pretty much the perfect point. So now that I had all of that done, I could bring back in the engine again, and we could try and get everything to match up together. Now, I felt that some of the skids and the door opening were a bit too loud. You can easily change all of your mix inside of Igniter, and therefore it keeps your volume master free to do whatever you want with it. So this is how it sounds. I still feel that door's a little bit too loud, so let's bring that down to about -8. I think the skids are pretty good though. And as you can hear, I wanted to add a little bit of a fade away of the van as everybody's moving away from it, which I could do with the master volume right here on the track. Let's hear how that all sounds now with the full sound design. And that's how I designed all of the sound for it with just Igniter. We hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you would like to see how we use the rest of our software to design this video, you can check the links in the description. If you would like to see any more tutorials or videos from us, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want more info on all of our products, you can check them out on our website at krotosaudio.com. Thanks for watching.